It's been a wonderful day.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Let's get this thing going, sir.
Absolutely excited to be here, man.
Yeah, good talking to you again. All right. So,
Definitely.
I guess the first thing is, what a little bit about yourself and your business.
Well, sure. My name is Mike Hackley, and I'm the owner of Grynd Tyme Consulting. The first thing you'll notice is that it's spelled differently than how you would typically see grind or time. It's because I've decided to take the I out and add the Y, right? And a lot of what I do is helping business owners understand why they're making the decisions that they're making. So I say take the I out of your grind and add your Y, right? Put your why into your grind. And actually it's an acronym. It stands for growth requires your nonstop dedication, right? And that's the grind part. And then time stands for today you're mitigating excuses.
Nice. Nice. I like that. I like that. I like how you made it an acronym too. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
because everything's a process, and from what it is that you do, it's all a process. And if we keep looking at business as a process, it's something that's constantly going to be improved, right? We'll never find that true holy grail because the customer is constantly changing. What they need is going to constantly change. So if we're stuck in old methodologies, that means we're going to be stuck getting a smaller and smaller piece of the pie.
Yep. Exactly, man. Exactly. And that brings me to, well, a little bit about myself. So know already, I'm with LFI Digital Marketing. And I basically help businesses grow in the health and fitness space. And I also have been a UX web and graphic designer for a very long time, since 2004. So translated, I make things look pretty. So I'll put it that way. And
Nice.
engaging for, your clients and things like that. Um, so on your end, what what drives you? What drives you to like your passion and your purpose with your business?
No, it really is about solving problems, right? I think I played with a lot of Lego blocks and Lincoln Logs growing up, right? So I'm an only child, so I had to have my own imagination take me to where it is I wanted to go. So being able to look at everything in life, not as a large problem all the time, but most large problems are very, very small problems stacked on top of each other until they look like a big ball of rubber bands, right? And if you can begin breaking those apart into their individual pieces, now you can solve complex problems one piece at a time. So that's really what I do is I help people to take a very large complex problem like digital marketing or building a website or connecting with their customers, and then we break that down into smaller bite-sized pieces so that way we can create actionable steps and plans so that we can continue to grow. I try not to make things too technical. I try to keep things as simple as possible because I think there is so much technology that so much of the terminology that we use makes things complicated. It makes it more confusing. But if we just break it down into basics, you want customers, let's figure out a plan on how you're going to go get them. I think it makes some things a lot simpler.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed too. Like people like to use a lot of jargon when they're talking to their clients, or just, you know, with people like us in general, like we'll be talking and all of a sudden there's like 15 acronyms thrown in the mix. And it's like, yeah, yeah. What did he just say?
And most clients are not going to say that to you. That's just going to be a hard no. We don't have the budget for that right now.
Hmm.
That's something I'm going to have to take to the manager or the CEO, right? And these it creates barriers because of a lack of understanding. One of my first sales coaches said the vast majority of NOs that you receive in the sales process is because your client doesn't KNOW, right? So they say no because they don't know. And it's our job to educate. And I think we have gotten so used to dealing with what we call warm leads, where the person is basically have already sold themselves, right? If you walk into Best Buy or, any big technology store, and you already know that you want to buy a big screen TV, selling you a big screen TV is not very difficult, right? Because you already know exactly what your pain is. You know
Mhm.
exactly what you want. What you might not know is that Samsung has the deluxe model on sale this week, or LG just came out with some new technology that, I mean, those kinds of things are bottom of the funnel feeding. So the client has already walked all the way through the sales funnel because they've been on YouTube, they've been to the different websites, they know that they want a large screen TV. You're just filling in the gaps versus what we do oftentimes is we're actually making people aware of their pain, right? Most business owners believe that word of mouth is all that they need, right? So they're not thinking about it, especially if you're talking to a roofing contractor in the middle of July, right? He's not thinking about anything other than I've got a billion things on my plate already. I'm not thinking about adding another customer, but October is coming, right? And that season of feasting is going to end, right? If you're not
Mhm.
prepared for it. So my thing is let's not wait until there's no more clients calling before we start thinking about how we're going to access new people into the business. And again, just getting new leads is not enough if you don't have a good solid um, system for how you're going to deal with that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's my big thing too. Like people say, I need leads, I need leads. Like we talked about this last week. Like you ask people, what's the one thing you need that I can help with? People can say leads, leads, leads. But when you get them to leads, there's no sales process in place, there's no automation. People that do call that are leads, you're not picking up the phone for them at all. So you got to have some kind of process in place. And also, depending on how your business is set up, if you're offering a service and it's, let's just say, like a one-time deal, it lasts for maybe a couple weeks or a month. Okay. You want to focus on that client, but at the same time, you got to have a surplus in the background. You can't just be like, oh, I got a client. That's it. Now I'm good to go. No, you got to keep marketing. You got to keep promoting your service because you don't know what's going to happen with that client. You don't know if they're just going to up and leave for no reason. You don't know if they're going to have problems with paying you or anything like that. So, yeah, I definitely can understand and relate to where you're coming from. And that's a good point you brought up. Now, on your entrepreneurial journey, what would you say is, I guess, your biggest regret, and what would you do differently?
My biggest regret was that I waited so long to start reaching out to community, right? I am a big believer in being a solo entrepreneur, or whatever the buzzword is for it, right? But at the end of the day, there are certain limitations to my skill set, right? And for me to not acknowledge that is going to continue to allow a gaping hole to be in my business, right? And so reaching out to community to bounce ideas off of, to be able to gain insight and as to what it is they're experiencing, is something that I wish I would have done early on. And my business is only 6 months old, but I've been doing this kind of work from a corporate standpoint for a long time. And one of the things that we talked about before is that having a skill does not always translate into being an effective entrepreneur, right? If you're not understanding the problems that you're solving, that can be an issue. When you're dealing with, say, a garage door installation company, they may be absolutely fire when it comes to making sure your garage door is perfectly installed, everything is level, you get no rattle, no shake, no nothing. But as far as them being able to scale that and be able to deal with a large number of clients, right? That can be the difference between them being a struggling business and a thriving business, even though they have the skill set to go hang a great garage door every time they come out, right? But if they don't have the back end support, and that's really what a lot of entrepreneurs are missing, is that support away from the client, right? You know, how do you handle your bookings? How do you handle invoicing? How do you handle warranty work? Like, and these are not things that I'm going to sit here and tell you that I'm an expert in every single one of those, but I have an understanding of what those needs are. So my superpower, if I could say that, is being able to connect people with who's going to be able to serve them next. But seriously, it really does come down to being able to have open conversations like this, right? Just and I'm always shocked, and I posted this earlier today on LinkedIn. I'm always shocked at how often conversations about real infrastructure go unnoticed, right? You'll see you'll post something like, what can I do to help your business today? And you'll get like 7 complaints. But then when you even go to follow up with those people who posted the complaints, there's nothing, right? So I'm wondering, is like, what are we doing as a community to actually handle the problems other than just saying, hey, I have this problem? Are we actually putting in things in place? Like, what has your experience been with that kind of thing?
Yeah, I've definitely dealt with I will say those kind of roadblocks, which is a question I'm going to ask you, but I'll answer it for myself. One of the biggest challenges I've had when trying to get clients has been, like you said, you'll post a question, there'll be answers, but when you follow up, it's either crickets or they'll say, no, I'm handling it, or I've got this on my own, or I can do this by myself at a cheaper price. That's another one I've heard before too. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, like you said, you can be the best, garage door installer, but do you know how to read the analytics when it comes to tracking an ad? Do you know about the cost per click? Do you know how to do A/B testing? Do you know how to, all those kinds of things? So that's what I've experienced before. And when you start adding, you might get crickets here and there when it comes to getting clients and the roadblocks. And this is another reason why I wanted to start these talks with different business owners is because we can spread the message of what we're dealing with, along with providing insights and tips on how to deal with things. That's the other thing about it. But yeah, when it comes to, the challenge of getting clients, like even though you know what the problem is, it's there and not responding. One thing is they need to, like everyone says, they need to know, like, and trust you. And that's where, again, building relationships comes into play. And you also need to have your why, your intention behind those conversations, whether it's through, sending a message, sending an email, trying to hop on a phone call, anything like that. But you also need to provide some kind of value. Because I've seen this so many times when it's kind of shocking to me, I'll be honest. When people try to reach out to me, like on LinkedIn, for example, I'll get a direct message talking about, hey, want to see if we could connect. We help, small business owners with digital marketing and web design. Like clearly, you have not read my profile because that's exactly what I do. So I think that's the other thing. People aren't paying attention to who they're going after, their target audience. They're just, I'll call it rage DMing, for
Mm-hmm.
example, trying to
Mm-hmm.
get anyone that they can, to be honest. So that's been my experience when it comes to trying to get clients. People aren't focusing on their target and they're not trying to add actual value ahead of time. Because that's my thing. I like to lead with results first instead of like, hey, I do this, pay me this much.
Right.
So what's been your experience when, your biggest challenge with getting clients?
I mean, it really is just opening up that door to being able to get them to understand the pain is not going to go away, right? And oftentimes, um, we as people, just in general, have a bury our head in the sand until the sun goes down type of mentality, right? It's going to eventually get less hot outside if I just keep my head buried in the sand. The problem is you miss out on so many opportunities. So one of the things that I believe you're 100% correct on is being able to give real value before you're asking for a dime, right? So in that, I like to be able to take this conversation to be able to talk a little bit about being able to identify what your ideal customer is, right? And I believe that oftentimes, almost every metric that you and I would use, whether I'm using it to build a customer funnel for the website, or you're using it to actually put together the Google Ads campaign, either way, we're starting off with the ideal customer in mind, right? And I think that's because you and I are looking at this from a classically trained standpoint, right? We've read the books, we've went to the seminars, right? We know the SEO terminology, right? So we're starting from a level of knowledge that unfortunately, because of the way how muddy social media is, and honestly, the amount of scammers that have put a very um, bad taste in the mouths of many advertisers, right? Because of over promising something that you don't have the ability of delivering, right? So when you start off with identifying who your target audience is, I believe you are putting yourself in a better position to be successful, right? Every business, even if you look at five plumbing companies, all five plumbing companies, if they're being honest to why they started the business, most of them are going to have a slightly different ideal customer profile, right? Some plumbing companies are here specifically because my toilet's clogged at 4 in the morning and I need somebody to come out and unclog it, right? That's a very right now emergency situation, right? I grew up in a household where my family was involved with plumbing from a construction standpoint, where they only dealt with brand new construction, right? So they weren't coming out at 4 in the morning to fix your toilet because that's not what they did, right? And to believe that both of those customers need the exact same message because both of you are plumbers, right? That's where we're doing a disservice to our clients because we're not understanding who they're going after, right? If I bring a service-based customer a bunch of brand new installs for new residences, I'm going to put them in a position where they're not going to be as successful as they could have been if I would have given them an actual, say, commercial client that has, five apartment buildings and they're all residential buildings, but I need you to know that I've got 50 units, right? So the likelihood of one of them having a toilet clog at 4 in the morning, I need you on that, right? Versus a home builder that's building five or six different home projects. They need
Mhm.
somebody that's not unclogging toilets but understands the nuances of navigating brand new construction, because those are different types of problems to solve, right? So if we can break any of this down and have one takeaway, I believe if we can educate our clients on how to properly identify their ideal customer profile, it's not only going to make our job easier, but every single coach, consultant that we know we're going to need to put them in contact with is going to have an easier job servicing them as well. Because no matter there are if you're dealing with a smaller agency like you or ours, if we do get a client that wants to be on television, it's going to be more efficient for us to partner with somebody who's already worked all of that out. Not that we can't figure it out, right? That's not the issue. It's not about figuring it out, it's about operating within your own skill set, right? So if I have a client that wants to go from social media and website advertising to television, I'm going to connect them with somebody that has already done all that work. Number one, they know barriers and they know obstacles that somebody researching the industry is not going to know about because some of that stuff is hidden, right? There's certain keywords and things that you and I know about from a web design and a digital marketing space that can dramatically change the effectiveness of a campaign that
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's only been dealing with television is not going to be aware of. So I think we need to get away from this idea of really being a one-stop shop, believing that we can solve all of our customers' problems, and acknowledge the fact that we're all just trained conductors and we're just taking them from one station to the next. Eventually, they're going to get off of our train, but if we do that right, we want them to get off of our train, right? Because we want to be able to take them from that state of where they are to where they want to be. And once they get there, we're either going to reassess what it is we're going to do next, but we cannot come back with the exact same plan because that train left the station. It's now at a new station. So now we have new opportunities, new issues that we need to deal with. What are your thoughts?
Yep. Well, that's perfect because it leads me like we're clicking today, and that leads me directly into how some businesses and even entrepreneurs and business owners themselves, there's the fantasy versus a reality of what's happening. And like you said, the fantasy, like we had talked about this before, the fantasy is that, oh, I'm going to get clients left and right. I know exactly what I'm doing. I've got all these things in place. Everything is just perfect. Everything is perfect. Okay, let me start the business. And in about like 2 months, I'll be making 10 grand a month and I can leave my corporate job. Everything's going to be fine. Then the reality hits and you realize, let's just say you sign on one client, oh, I need this and this. I'm like, oh, well, um, I'm sorry, I don't do that specific service, which is where networking comes into play. And like you said, networking is important because you can get that client that's asking for this and this that you don't do to their second point, point B. So our job is to get them from the problem to where they're at. We build a bridge, which is networking, to the solution, which is point B. And that's an important aspect of it all. Also, what are your thoughts on the fantasy versus reality concept? Like, is that something that's uh hit you hit you kind of hard when you started, or do you see that across the board, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think if we're being honest, most entrepreneurs at some point face that critical point where there's the fantasy of I have, this X amount of skills. I can do 10 things very, very well, right? And being able to translate that into an actionable business plan is not always easy. And the other thing is being able to pivot, like being able to change directions because again, we're dealing with people, and people have the right to change their minds. They have a
Mhm.
right to want what they did not want previously, right? The more you expose somebody to what's available, the more that they're going to want. And I think that that also can be an issue because when there's so much information available, sometimes the ease of implementation it gets fuzzy where because there's so many different tools available, it should be easy to either implement a tool, or if I made a mistake, it should be easy to just, digress and go jump on another tool, right? And I know that, I'm sure you know that once
Mhm.
you create that ad campaign, right? Yes, it's easy to shut it off, but going in a completely opposite direction, right, can sometimes be very, very costly because you are wasting time and effort and energy on something that oftentimes could have been avoided with a proper strategic plan, right?
Mm.
And planning things out has been the most important thing, and accepting the fact that it's going to be slow, right? That was probably the biggest reality for me, was the fact that my initial two clients that I first got were just Number one, they were easy clients, and easy in the aspect of they were very familiar with what they wanted, and they were also a little bit familiar.
Ooh, there we go. Wi-Fi monsters. They're attacking.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, so they were
We're
kind
fending
of
them
aware
off.
of how digital marketing worked, made my job a lot easier, right? But when I started going after client 4 and 5, and now I'm starting to step into a space where people are not as knowledgeable about what's even available, or they have knowledge that's not founded on fact. That's probably another thing that I'm dealing with. Again, because there's so many scammers and so many people that are over driving the promise. Because I can't promise you that I'm going to 10x your business. Number one, I don't even know if there is even volume to justify that statement, right? I see that all the time. I'm going to 10x your business. I'm going to 10x your business. Well, number one, how can I 10x your business if you are a massage therapist, right? And you're already booked out at 30 hours a week, right? I can't 10x your business unless we're talking about putting in some additional therapists, right? So on the surface, what the goal is has to make sense with what it is you're willing to sacrifice, right? So that's really where I think the reality versus fantasy comes in is, and it's not all about money, because I've worked with some clients who are like, I'll spend 20 grand a month on YouTube ads, whatever, but they're not willing to invest and another roofing inspection person, right? So you're going to throw all of this money on getting YouTube ads because YouTube ads do work, right? And you're going to you're going to pay a photographer to go out and take this phenomenal footage of you doing your thing. I get it, but once you start dropping that kind of money with nobody else to go out and do the inspections, we're going to end up in a situation where your customer service is going to go down the toilet. Your like, know, and trust goes down the toilet because yes, people know you, but they don't like you and they don't trust you
Yep.
because of your marketing efforts. Over promising and under delivering is definitely a killer.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, especially with that last point. Especially with that last point, for real. Um, but I will say, and this is the last, let's just call it the closing question. Um, I'd say, do you think that other entrepreneurs focus on other people's audiences rather than their own?
I think it goes back to that fantasy, right? Because let's look at the plumbing situation. If you are a service oriented plumber, I apologize, all of your trucks, everything that you do, all of your inventory, everything that you have is based on you being a service industry provider, right? If you start looking at the revenue that a new construction company is generating, right? You can now begin fantasizing about what it would be like to have that type of clientele. But if you don't have the infrastructure set up to do it, and we keep coming back to that same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It coming back to the infrastructure, which means that I believe most business owners would do well with taking 20 free initial consultations, 20 free strategy calls, right? Every business strategist that truly believes what they're saying makes sense, they're going to give you an opportunity to talk to them with no obligations, no questions asked. Find 20 of them, right? And go have all the conversations that you want. If you're not willing to invest the money, then be willing to invest the time. Most of us love talking so much that we're going to give you the kitchen sink for free, right? Most of us will give you, seriously, most of us will give you way more strategy, way more business acumen, way more stuff because we just love what it is that we do, right? We love being able to solve problems. We love being able to see somebody go from averaging 10 views of video to now they're averaging 50 views of video, right? And that's real growth. And that's the type of growth that most clients are going to see. Most clients are not going to see their average views go from 10 views of video to 5,000 views of video in 30 days, right? And when you watch the YouTube shorts, all you see are the Alex Ramozis and the you know what I mean, the Vanderchucks of the world, and these guys, yes, if you partner with them, they probably can take you from 5 views of video to 5,000 views of video, but you're also going to pay them 20 to 30 grand a session, right? So if you're looking to invest and you're looking to invest 500, 1,000, $2,500, then this is the type of consistent growth that you're going to get, right? And I believe we are doing ourselves a disservice if we're not talking about the reality of omni-channel marketing and what that all means and how it all comes together to really give you a platform of know, like, and trust. So more than anything, I want to recommend that every business owner that sees this, I don't care what vertical you're in, right? I encourage you, no matter who you are in business, where you are in business, go find a strategist, a coach, somebody that you're going to be able to bounce ideas off of. Most of us, the vast majority of us, will give you an initial consultation with no obligation. Book calendars, go invest in your business and bounce these ideas off of people who care enough to actually want to see you win. And then you'll be able to develop your own game plan, figure out who you want to work with, and go from there. But we can't do it by ourselves. So I'm very, very humbled and thankful that you invited me on here. I believe that these conversations are necessary. Hopefully, it will open up the doorway for people to go find that strategist that's fit for them. I admit I am not the strategist for everybody. I don't believe that there is a one size fits all for everybody, every business. So go find the coach that works for you, right? And my last thing is every professional athlete, from tennis to wrestling, boxing, football, soccer, every last single one of them, even the ones that are at the top of their game, they all have individual position coaches that help them along the way, right? Michael Jordan had a shooting coach, right? Stephen Curry also has a shooting coach, right? These are some guys who have some of the best NBA shooting percentages ever, but yet they still found it necessary to invest in a coach. So if I'm not the guy, you know what I mean? If you're not the guy, go find the guy or the lady that's going to be able to get your business to where it needs to be. But please stop posting on Instagram about how you're struggling if you're not willing to put in the time, the effort, and the energy to fix what's wrong.
Yep. All right, we're coming to time here, a little bit over, but some valuable insights. Michael, Grynd Tyme Consulting, hit him up, look him up. Clearly, you can see he knows what he's talking about, and I can vouch for him 100%. This dude, we're going to connect a lot more now because we are in sync. So, Grynd Tyme Consulting, all right? Look him up, follow him on Facebook, LinkedIn, every social media channel. All right.
Awesome. Well, I feel the same way about you, brother. It's been, you are the driving force behind this, and you are given a platform, and I'm just looking to see great things from you as you continue to reach out and make yourself available. This is amazing. I'm glad that we were able to connect here, and I believe this is going to be the start of something amazing.